Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get started with the episode, I just want to remind everyone we do have a Facebook page. So if you can, and if you are signed up to that service, go to facebook.com/No Name Music Cast. We post some videos and things that we discuss about the episode. So please head over to there and like it. And if you do like it, share it with your friends. And likewise, the podcast itself, if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or MySpace or wherever you listen and you like it, please share it with your friends because we're always looking to grow our listenership.
Tim could even probably burn it to a VHS and send it to your house if you need it.
I can do
at
that.
This point.
A Philips Video 2000, a Betamax, a micro cassette. Whatever you need.
Okay, here's your 8-track of tonight's episode.
But there we go. Okay, so news hot off the press. We do have a tip of the day jingle coming from one of our listeners. I mean, I have no idea who it's going to be. It's going to be a big surprise, but I understand it's incoming, so the wait won't be much longer for the tip of the day jingle. But we are going to go into tip of the day now. Joy, what's your tip for this week?
My tip for this week is if you haven't had the COVIDs and you get the COVIDs, hot take, guys. Thankfully I came through it fine, but I had the COVIDs. The new variant or whatever I had, every single one of us, me, my husband, the people who were near us who got it, we are all now suffering with something that's very weird. It's heartburn. So my tip of the day is if you're worried about the COVIDs or if you just want to stock up in case you get the COVIDs, get some Tums because I'm serious. For some reason, we're all past and Tim can tell you I sounded pretty rough a week ago. And I had mild cold symptoms, but for some reason, every single one of us for the past 72 hours have all said we've had the worst heartburn we've ever had in our lives. And the only thing I can come up with is some long-standing effect of COVID. I don't know, or maybe congestion making you have heartburn. I'm not a scientist or doctor, but one, either go get Tums or maybe invest in Tums stock.
Now, the question I have for you, yes, it could be the COVIDs, but could it be all that delivery food you had while you and Charlie couldn't leave the house?
I thought about that too, but that's kind of like diminished now. So I thought that too, because I tried the new KFC Beyond chicken nuggets and I told Tim they were delicious. Mm-hmm. And then 2 or 3 times I had pizza and one other thing delivered. But yeah, I don't think, because now I've kind of stopped. I cooked the last few meals I've eaten at the homestead and it's the heartburn has not diminished.
Well, I hope for everyone in your household that clears up soon.
It's not the worst thing that can happen. And in the grand scheme of things that could happen with COVID, we were very lucky. It's just kind of weird. I wasn't expecting that part of it.
Well, I have a tip of the day for people out there who may have just lived through a snowstorm. Like we have.
I don't know. It's still slightly windy out there, Tim. You might be counting too soon.
Yeah, or people who are currently living through a snowstorm. So my tip is if you happen to live in the United States where having a storm door on the outside of your door is common, like in England, it's not common. You normally just have a door at the front of your house and then you're out in the world. Here in the United States, have what's known as a storm door, where you have a door to the outside world that typically pulls in towards you. And then there's like a door with like either a mesh on it or glass or something. And typically that goes outwards. And if it's been snowing heavily and there's been a snow drift affair where there's been high winds and the snow has drifted up against your storm door, soon as you see that stuff happening, go out and get a snow shovel and clear it. Because otherwise, what will happen, like today, I went to go out and I pushed the storm door and nothing happened.
Got it locked into your home.
Yeah, so what I had to do, our storm door has got a glass panel that you can move up and down.
Yeah.
So I managed to open it up. I climbed through this tiny little glass panel and then went outside and had to dig all the snow and the ice. Now, what happened is not only did we have snow, we had an ice storm. So you had a snow layer at the top and then you had hard, solid ice at the bottom. So I had to hack it for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, we lived through a pretty rough one yesterday. There was a lot of accidents. A major interstate near us got shut down. Thankfully, we were already off of work today for a holiday, so we didn't have to worry about it. And our work has already delayed the schedule tomorrow. But I did go out and clean my car, which was rough because every 5 seconds the wind kept blowing the snow right into my face the entire time I was trying to clean my car off, or like kept blowing the snow back to where I just cleaned. Yeah. I mean, I got the vast majority of it off, so at least it won't be like frozen tomorrow. But yeah.
And I do worry about you, Joy. The ice and snow is slippery, right?
I do. I was wearing good boots and I made it out. But I mean, I was mostly just annoyed because the snow kept blowing in my face and my eyes and then my nose. It's very cold where we're at, if you guys didn't pick up on that.
Exactly. I mean, we have listeners all over the world who are probably in baking hot temperatures as we are recording this. But there we are.
Or the ones from, like, if we ever got our Antarctica listener, they're probably going, ha, you think it's cold.
But there we go. Anyhow, that's enough tips for this week. On to the vague music topic, which will probably end up us talking about couch cushions or carpeting or something. So this week is my turn for the topic. And as you all know, if you're listening, this is the No Name Musicast. So I was thinking, sort of extrapolating that a little bit into the music realm and the topics. I was thinking about albums that have no name, i.e. self-titled albums. So This week's topic is no-name albums or self-titled albums.
That makes sense.
So what I've done is I've gone through the music that I have, and I've picked out a number of self-titled albums, and I figure we just discuss them and some of the tracks on there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping some of the ones I've picked out may be a little bit surprising because, as you know, my musical tastes tend to fall into a certain genre and path. It deviates a little bit.
Yep.
So,
I mean, it's basically, it kind of stops about 1995.
Wow. Funny you should say that. The first one I have is when I hit record, play, and then pause, which was 1995.
Oh, look at me.
And the album is by the band Garbage. Are you familiar with Garbage?
I am.
Okay.
In any other context, that would be a weird statement to make, but continue.
Yeah. So I remember buying this when it came out because I really liked some of the tracks on it. Super Vixen, the opening track's good. Queer is a good track. But the track on here, which most people would know, is the single, which is called Only Happy When It Rains.
Which has been used in like 74 movies to make some melancholy background. You know what I mean? Something like, because that opening, I'm only happy when it rains, with that kind of melancholy voice. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's been used in a lot of movies.
It has. And I remember at the time, that was a big single.
Yeah. I still hear it occasionally. Like if you were like walking around and you heard somebody was listening to the radio, I'm fairly certain it's still played pretty often.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really enjoyed this album and listened to it a lot. As I said, I bought it when it came out. And then they came out with a follow-up to this called Version 2.0. And I had high hopes for the follow-up to this, but I don't know. For me, it wasn't as good as this one.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I do know, some of the hits. Like I know Super Vixen is on that one. Mm-hmm. And that's like one of the very first songs. And then of course it only happens when it rains and a few other things. But I mean, overall though, I feel like how many albums do they even have? They don't, in my brain, they don't ring as like a long standing career.
No, I mean the other song off here is "Stupid Girl." That's another great track.
Oh, that's another
here.
one. Yeah,
but yeah. I think they're still out there getting it done, but they're probably on that sort of nostalgia circuit now. I don't know. Maybe they've had a massive long career with fans that really love them, and they're still making music. But I don't know. I don't really know much about them, to be honest. I just like this album.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel. There are probably some underground, like people still, you know what I mean? There's people out there still standing them type thing. Who knows? Feels like it.
But there we go. Anyhow, the next one I have is, I think we may have discussed this before for the video, but this is sometimes known as the Blue Album, but it is officially just called Weezer.
Yeah.
And there's a number of good tracks on there, but the track that everybody would know, of course, is Buddy Holly.
Which isn't my, I don't know, it's not my favorite. Everybody knows that song, but there's other Weezer songs that I think are better. Saying It So is probably another one that everybody would know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's on that album as well.
That would be my guess. Yeah, I mean, Weezer's one of those bands, though, that they still make. I feel like they're still out there touring. They're always around. And I've never heard anyone say, I don't like Weezer.
Well, yeah, they've come out with some different music in different genres. They came out with an album recently called Van Weezer, which has a kind of 80s classic rock feel about it.
Yeah. Well, and then they did that concert tour where they had a bunch of other people on tour. Like they kept bringing other artists and stuff in, I think. Mm-hmm. Which was kind of cool. But yeah, Weezer's one of those bands. I kind of rank them with like, I don't know, like there's certain bands that I think if I ever heard someone say I don't like them, it would be strange to me. And that's how I feel about Weezer.
Yeah, I mean, I never had much of a great opinion of Weezer. And certainly in 1994, I didn't know of Weezer. I've only known them after the fact, and then I've gone back and listened to their output. But I don't know. There's some good music there. I mean, I think we discussed it, but their cover of Africa with Weird Al in the video is superb.
It's good. Honestly, I'd rather hear it than the Toto version at this point because I've heard it so many times.
That's true, but I mean, Toto's still cool.
Oh no, they're still cool. It's just that specific song is one that I've heard so much. Mm-hmm. I got a little burnt on it. I'm not going to lie.
It's like that Guns N' Roses song that will never be named.
He should not be named.
Yeah, we can never speak of it again.
Well, I've got my Leonard Skinner song that I feel the same way about.
Oh goodness,
so bad. C, D, G.
D, C, G. Yeah. Shut it down, Joyce. Shut it down.
Lord. So I'll update on the ukulele playing. So I posted a few things of me actually playing the ukulele, but the other day I was going through practicing my chords because it's still fairly new. I got to get my finger placement and be able to move smoother through my transitions because it's chunky at the moment. But I figured that just comes with time. There's this Family Guy part where Stewie's going through and he's like, we got your C chord and then your D chord. He's like playing the guitar. And then Brian, the dog, walks in. He's like, Brian comes in and it changes the tempo. He's just playing those same chords, the C, D, G, probably an F. And Charlie came in and I was going C, D. He's like, you sound like Stewie on that episode. So then I wrote, when he walked up, I went, Charlie comes in and it changes the tempo. You've never seen that little sketch. It's so funny. Actually, I should send that one to you, Tim, because as a guitar player, you'll find it funny. Yeah,
I mean, you know what you should do if you find it? Post it up in the Facebook page.
I will. I was thinking that exact thing. I know what. Yeah, it's a funny one for any musician out there.
So are you enjoying your newfound skills on the ukulele? Is it everything you hoped and dreamed of?
It is. The chords are not the hard part for me. The strumming is harder for me. And the weird thing about the strumming is that one is one that just doesn't come natural. So like you have to just work on it. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, my fingers are no longer cut and swollen and I can actually strum for the first. So I started strumming. Naturally, I strum with my thumb, but then I started using my pointer and like what they call the rooster, because that's the one you should be, what they recommend. Mm-hmm. But it got so messed up, like it physically like busted open, like you can imagine, because strumming on guitar or ukulele strings. And so now I've been strumming with my middle finger, which is kind of weird because like nobody does that, but it seems to be the easiest part for me. But for me, I just like to sing. So it gives me something easy to play, to sing songs to. And there's about 1,000 songs that only take like 4 chords or 2 chords.
Well, I tell you what, you should. I know you've made some videos, but maybe some of our listeners have not seen them. So maybe you should put one of them up on the No Name Music Cast Instagram page.
I will find the reel that I posted the other day that you liked when I said I got my voice back after the COVIDs and stick it up there.
There we go. Fantastic. I mean, it must be said, you're talking about your fingers hurting. I've played guitar for so long. I've been playing since I was 13 years old. Mm-hmm. And I can literally play guitar for hours and hours and hours, and it never hurts.
I will say it's gotten better. That was like the first week. Now I feel like one of my fingers, my hand that I did my chords with, the fingers on the top are completely calloused because I play for hours and hours and hours, to the point that my husband probably gets annoyed because it's like the same song over and over and over. But it's something that I just enjoy doing. So.
But I'm glad you have that, because now you can, much like a lot of us, post videos you singing and playing and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's just something fun. Well, and it helps when during the COVIDs because it gave me something to do because I couldn't leave.
Oh yeah, that's a good side. You may have had the COVIDs, but you honed your ukulele skills.
Yep, I got that. I was struggling with my G chord, but I got it now and I can go through them much more smoother post COVID than I could before COVID.
There we go. Every cloud has a silver lining, Joy.
Well, that took a turn. Okay, Tim, what's the next album?
Well, the next one I have, now, using your metric of 1995 of where I stopped listening to music, this comes from 1997. So,
oh, man, I was off.
I was still listening to a few new things in 1997. And this is Blur.
Oh,
Are
okay.
Are you familiar with Blur as an artist?
Yes. I thought you were going to say something else, and then I was like, duh, it's self-titled. He doesn't have to sit. That's why I paused for a minute. It took me a second. But yes, I am. They're British.
Yeah, it was at the time there was the big Blur Oasis wars. It was like the 90s version of Rolling Stones versus the Beatles. I think in real life they were probably on the same label or something like that, but you was either sort of Camp Blur or you was either Camp Oasis, and never the twain should meet.
Were they brothers? Was Blur the ones that are brothers, or is it Oasis?
No, that's Oasis.
See, we talked about them on my British, the Top of the Pops episode, the competition between them or something.
Yeah, and Blur was headed up by Damon Albarn.
I wouldn't know that person.
Oh, there you go. He also had an electronic side project called Gorillaz.
Oh, okay. I know who the Gorillaz are.
Yeah, so that was Damon Albarn from Blur. But on this album, there was two tracks that probably most people would be familiar with. There was Beetle Bum.
Yeah.
And then the one that everyone knows is Song 2.
Yeah, those are the ones you still hear occasionally, like on some pop radio station or something.
Yeah, and Song 2 is the one that goes, woohoo!
Mm-hmm. That's been used in like 47 car commercials.
Oh.
Tim nailed it right there. Somebody's gonna take that bit and put you on a Ford commercial tomorrow. That song's gonna be in my head now. Yeah, I mean, I find it funny that I guess in America we didn't know about this whole British pop rock band fight of the century, but apparently it was everywhere. You guys had your version of the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC over here, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this was a golden era for me. I was working at a building society. We used to reach all of our branch targets. And how did I spend our branch target gift vouchers? I used to get HMV vouchers. And I used to go to HMV, which was in Hounslow High Street, one for you bingo card listeners out there. And I used to spend all that money on CDs. And I used to go in there and buy whatever I liked. And this was one of those CDs I bought, the Blur album, because I liked that Song 2.
So were you Team Blur or Team Oasis?
Very much Team Blur. I never much cared for Oasis. I think as the years have rolled along, I can appreciate some of the Oasis catalogue, but I think at the time I thought nothing of it.
See, and I actually kind of agree with you because that's not my genre of music in general. Oasis and Blur don't really, get me super excited. Like I know who they are. I hear them. I feel like Oasis had a longer, more predominant career in America than Blur did. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I get the sense. I think Blur, to some degree, in the United States, are not necessarily seen as a one-hit wonder. But they had that Coffee and TV song, Country House, Song 2, Girls and Boys, possibly, and that's probably a lot. Where I think the feuding of the Oasis brothers have really given them that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Status that they have now.
See, and the thing about it is I can name a lot more Oasis songs off the top of my head. You've got like Wonderwall, you've got Champagne Supernova. There's like one that's called like Whatever. You know what I mean? I feel like I could name more Oasis songs, but I was never a huge fan of them. Sorry, Oasis, if you're listening. I mean, you're fine. It just wasn't my thing.
And the other thing is that when I was in Rough Justice, the other guitarist Russ hated Oasis, and the equipment they used was classic guitar equipment, Gibson guitars and Marshall amps. You know, that is the sound. That is the sound of rock. That's the sound of AC/DC. That is the sound of, you know, every classic rock band ever. However, using that equipment, they had the thinnest, nastiest guitar sound. So I don't know what they were doing, but it just didn't work. And Russ used to say to me at gigs, he said, I don't really like this music, but he said, he's using a 335 and a Marshall head. He said, it sounds terrible. What are they doing?
We will never know. Well, if you are listening and you want to defend yourself, we'll have you on the podcast next week. Explain to us what this, was it an artistic choice? Did you prefer that sound? How did you make it?
Exactly. Anyhow, on to the next album. And this album is Rage Against the Machine from 1992.
That's another one I'm familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, there's a bunch of tracks on here which are great, but of course, the one that everybody knows is Killing in the Name of.
Which will be in my head now, and it'll just be him screaming it at me for the next 30 minutes.
And an interesting fun fact, in 2009, Killing in the Name of was the UK Christmas #1.
Random.
Well, what it was is that, see, in the UK, the Christmas #1 is a big deal. I think these days pop music charts are not a big deal because everybody's streaming, everybody has internet radio, everyone has satellite radio, all this stuff, and the charts are more or less irrelevant, I feel. But certainly traditionally in the UK, the charts have always been important, and the Christmas #1, if you get the Christmas #1, that is the thing. And going back to your Top of the Pops episode, they would normally announce it on Top of the Pops, and it's a big thing.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. So what happened is that year after year after year, it would be the X Factor. Whoever won the X Factor, they would have the Christmas #1. And it went on like that for 10 odd years. And people were utterly sick of it. So it was one of these internet-created campaigns to get them to #1. Now, it had been tried before where they tried to get David Hasselhoff's Get in My Car to #1, and that failed. And then there was a campaign actually this Christmas to get a song to #1, which I'm not going to repeat the title of, but it was about Boris Johnson. And you can look it up if you want to, but it's not, the title is not Safe for Work. Let's put it that way.
Kevin.
Okay, and that got to #5. It didn't get to #1. But this 2009 campaign to get Killing in the Name of for the Christmas #1 was very successful. And I remember when it happened because I bought the song on iTunes to do my bit.
So was it basically just like everybody buy this track and eventually we'll pull it all the way up to the top? Yeah,
and it was like you buy it this week and buy it on this service and don't buy it on that service and buy, they worked out how to do it. Yeah. And it got to the Christmas #1.
Makes sense.
And then Rage Against the Machine was so pleased that this song has a very strong message. They were very pleased that their song and this message was once again in the public eye and for discussion and what have you. They played a free concert. I think it was Hyde Park, thanking the people of the UK for getting them to #1 again.
Well, it takes a community, It takes a valley. What is that saying? It takes a whatever to raise a community, a village. It takes a village. That's what I tried. I said everything but the word, like community, team, friend, a village. It takes a village.
There we are.
They worked very hard for one common goal.
One common goal to get Rage Against the Machine to #1 for Christmas. And it worked. And
That's random.
And of course, I don't think there's a radio edit of this. And of course, nobody played it. But it was great.
Fair enough.
But there you go. Okay, so delving back a little bit into the past, which is where I'm very comfortable with. As I get into my past duvet and feel very warm and comfortable with that. This is 1975, which is 1 year after I came into this world. And this is Fleetwood Mac.
And
Now
that album's Fleetwood Mac. I keep waiting for an album, and then I remember it's self-titled, and I'm like, okay, duh.
You remember the topic, like we're no-name music ask, and these are no-name albums? You remember that from about, I don't know, 30 minutes ago?
Apparently not, because I keep blanking. I'm like, wait, he's going to say more? Nope, that's the topic, Joy. Anyway.
But there we go. Anyway, Fleetwood Mac, which doesn't have a title, or it's sometimes known as Fleetwood Mac. The big track off here, well, there's two big tracks. The first big track, of course, would be Rhiannon.
Yeah. Which was the song that I spent 20 minutes on that one episode trying to remember. Remember I screamed Stevie Nicks at you trying to remember? Have you been a long-term listener? I just started laughing, remembering that as soon as he said it.
I had this vision. I really need to get them made, but I want to get some No-Name Music Cast bumper stickers made up. And what I'm going to do is going to have the logo on. This will be a black sticker with the logo on the left, our logo on the left. And then on the right-hand side, there's going to be a couple of variations. There's going to be one that says, "Don't come for me, Internet," with an exclamation mark. And then the other one's just going to say Stevie Nicks.
I also want one that says Meat Raffle.
Maybe
I want a T-shirt.
Maybe when we figure out our merchandising, we can do a 3-sticker pack.
Yes, I want one that says Meat Raffle. Oh, Lord. Yeah, those will be at the top.
I think one of these days, I think we maybe need a no-name Musicast road trip by air. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to like the Hanworth British Legion Club and make sure they definitely have a meat raffle so you can see it with your own eyes.
What was it that you told me about? You guys had like bingo halls or something, like big bingo. What was that you were telling me?
Well, yeah, you go to a bingo hall, and they wouldn't necessarily. I don't know if you'd have a meat raffle at a bingo hall. It's sort of a social club. No, but there was.
I was going to say, well, if we're going to fly for a meat raffle, you can show me the bingo halls too while you're there.
Oh yeah,
like, we don't really have like just big bingo halls that sound like a casino.
Yeah, I mean, I say growing up, there was the Beacon Bingo Club in Hounslow. It was literally behind our house.
Well, there you go. See, we have bingo, like people do bingo here, but we don't really have like dedicated bingo halls in the way Tim described it.
And there was a big thing in the probably 80s, I suppose, where going to the cinema fell out of fashion, and a lot of these old-timey cinemas became bingo halls.
I mean, that makes sense.
And there was the Top Rank Bingo, which is at the top of Hounslow High Street by the bus garage, which I know you know where that is. That used to be a cinema, and it became a bingo hall. And then I think it then got demolished and got turned into flats. But there you go. Yeah. Such is the circle of life when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
But there we go. Anyway. Let's try and steer this vaguely back to the world of music, if at all possible. So the next one, do you want me to explain the artist and the title, or do you think you'd be okay on this one?
I think I got it.
Okay, all right. So this one is from 1970, and this is Black Sabbath.
Well, I'm trying to think of what's on that album, but I don't know what are some of the bigger songs on that album, because I don't know if I've heard their stuff. I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, the main track off there is there's The Wizard is on there, Wicked World's on there, but the track is the track Black Sabbath. And when it opens, so it's like Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath off Black Sabbath. And a lot of people say this is exactly where metal began. All paths in the world of metal lead to the Black Sabbath album. And when it opens, it's those kind of demonic sounding chords. It's like, yeah, this is different. Nothing was like this at this point.
I mean, I do like Black Sabbath. I couldn't think of what that... and it's weird to me because I know they're metal, but I don't associate them with metal, I think, the way a lot of people do, because I know and I think there's some controversy whether they are or not. Yeah,
I mean, I think if you ask any metal musician from any heavy metal band of the various, offshoots of the world of metal, thrash metal, speed metal, doom, Swedish power metal, all these various subgenres of metal, I think everyone would agree it begins with Black Sabbath.
Well, like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Pantera. I feel like they're all kind of like the ones that are the mainstream metal bands, I guess.
Sure, but not Pantera and what have you. They weren't doing it in 1970.
Oh, no, I was just trying to think of like those mainstream people. So that makes sense. I mean, I like Black Sabbath. I just thought that there was some controversy whether they're technically metal, but they seem metal to me.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is that Tony Iommi, who's the guitar player from Black Sabbath, he's left-handed. I mean, that's beside the point, but he was working in a steel foundry, I think it was, leading up to when Black Sabbath were about to be big. And I think they'd signed their record deal, and he was about to leave his job in this steel foundry to go on tour with Black Sabbath. And apparently he was a good guy, and he wanted to give his notice and make sure he was doing all the right things in case the world of music didn't work out. So he was on his last few days, and he touched a metal sheet, and he burnt off all the fingertips on his right hand, his fretting hand, to the point where he doesn't have any fingerprints, scarring, the whole thing. It's terrible. And he didn't think he'd ever be able to play the guitar again. The burns and the damage to his fingers were that bad. But he worked with somebody, and what they did is they created little plastic rubber thimbles to go over his fingers. I've seen
those, yeah.
To go over his fingers, to protect his fingers so he could fret. But he still couldn't get the chords down correctly. It didn't sound right. I was
say, it'd be hard without your fingertips to press into the fretboard.
So what he did is he tuned his guitar down, which makes the strings much easier to press down, and in the process created that sludgy, down-tuned metal sound.
And that makes sense, because when you're tuning and they're getting tight, you're going to get a more high pitch. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so completely by accident, he created that sound, that sound of metal, that down-tuned sound.
How far off of the chords was he, or off the notes was he? Like, if it was a G, is it just like half a little bit below it, or was he like going pretty far low?
I think on a regular guitar, your bottom string is a low E. I think he was tuning down to C or C sharp. I can't remember what it was, but it was low. And then when you hear this, it sounds so.
Interesting. That's cool, though. See, Oasis. Maybe Oasis was making an artistry choice too, Tim. You just don't know the story.
Yeah, on the mixing desk. Yeah, let's take all the bass and mids out there and crank the treble up. Yeah, look at that. Artistic choice.
Let them live, Tim. Gosh.
I don't know. I will say I like Champagne Supernova.
I do too.
That is a very good song.
I would say that's probably my favorite song by them.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite too. I have a particular memory associated with that song, but I'm planning another episode, so I won't reveal that. I won't reveal that story at this juncture.
Were you drinking champagne?
No.
Oh, darn. That would have been too on the nose.
I was in France, but anyway, I'm planning an episode, and that will feature in that.
Okay, fair enough.
So there we go.
That's the next album.
Okay, so this next one is one we may have discussed before, and this is from 1969, and this is Led Zeppelin.
I think we have, but I don't remember what episode we talked about it. Maybe the one where you picked albums, actually, Tim.
Yeah, I think so. But again, the first Led Zeppelin album, self-titled. And this has got Good Times, Bad Times, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Shook Me, Dazed and Confused, How Many More Times, all that kind of stuff. Classic Zeppelin. I mean, this and Led Zeppelin 4 are probably the ones that most people are going to know the songs from.
Yeah. And okay, so here's my question, Tim. Since we got on the whole thing about Black Sabbath being metal, do you find Led Zeppelin to be more bluesy rock than regular rock, or how do you define them?
I would, at the beginning, it was like blues rock, because certainly Jimmy Page had been in the Yardbirds. And much of Led Zeppelin 1 comes from old blues music. And they pretty much took a lot of those songs from old blues artists. And as we've mentioned before, in subsequent pressings of that album, it now has a lot of those blues artists listed as co-authors of the songs.
Because they got in a lot of heat at one point. And you can go down a rabbit hole of like all their songs supposedly came from another. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, but I would say some of it borders on hard rock, but I would sort of call it classic hard rock. With the kind of blues. Earlier stuff is more bluesy.
I was just curious because I've heard him referred to as blues artist, and I'm like, well, I hear that in the initial kind of this album you're talking about, but then as they got past it, they became more of just like a rock artist to me.
Sure, and later on they got more into having acoustic sounds and different songwriting and stuff like that. And I mean, as we said before, Jimmy Page is a genius producer. You know, he's a great guitar player, and the tone he gets from his guitar is, you know, is very unique and it's very much like Jimmy Page. But I feel his primary skill, and some people would disagree, is production. And if you listen to any of this Led Zeppelin stuff in headphones, it's like listening to a new song, because the way it's lovingly created in the stereo mix, it's amazing. Got that
building upon itself, so you get all the layers.
It's very well done. And I mean, that's what he was doing. He was a studio guitar player long before he was in Led Zeppelin.
And it cracks me up when I see the way he looks now with the white hair, like where he's still got long hair and it's white. Have you seen him recently? I saw him on something not too long ago.
Yeah, he looks like a friendly grandma.
He does. I always think that. I was going to say, he always looks like kind of like a grandma to me. Well, that's weird too, because I was thinking the same thing, but you said it.
And do you know who's also looks a bit like that these days? Steven Tyler.
He does, but he looks like a friendly. He looks like a friendly grandmother who did some drugs in the 60s.
He looks like a friendly grandmother who's lived a little bit of a hard life, but, you know, has enjoyed herself.
She knew it was a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
There we are.
Oh, Lord. Was he the one, Steven Tyler, wasn't he? He was the one that went to like some bar in Charlotte, right? Just like happened to pop in and nobody realized it was him.
No, that was Mick Jagger.
Oh, darn. He kind of looks like a grandmother who's done a lot of drugs too.
Well, I don't know. He's got that. Jimmy Page and Steven Tyler have more of a kind of like a feminine look about their face. Yeah. But like Mick Jagger sort of has more of a, how can I describe it? A Mick Jagger face.
I was going to say, let me restate this. He just looks like an older guy who's done a lot of drugs. You can take the grandmother part out. I just was trying to remember who it was that went to the bar in North Carolina.
Yeah, it was Mick Jagger. He had a few hours to kill after the sound check, so he thought he'd just go to a local bar and get a beer.
But yeah, I was just thinking about that. What would you do, though, if you like turn around to him and there was just an artist just sitting in the bar drinking? Do you feel like you would approach them, or you think they'd be like, they're just having a pint, leave them alone?
I think I'd probably leave them alone. I think I'm at a stage in my life where I don't need to get them to scribble on a bit of paper. I don't necessarily need them to take a picture with me. I don't know. I would feel it cooler just to be sitting in a bar and think, oh, look at that. That's Mark Knopfler over there.
I might even be like, hey, cheers, and see if they would cheers me.
Yeah, or if I was at the bar buying a drink and I saw Mark Knopfler, I might just say, hey, big fan, Mark, can I get you a drink? And then buy him a drink, and that's the end of that.
But then you have that memory. And, you know, who knows? They might strike up a conversation with you. But yeah, I don't think I would naturally want to come up and be like on top of them, because I find it annoying when people do that. I understand that they're celebrities, but they're also just people who sometimes don't, or just trying to eat their dinner. You know what I mean? I don't feel like people need to run up at them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I told you the story about Willie Nelson in the coffee pot.
Yeah.
And if anyone who hasn't heard that story, to cut an incredibly long story short, there's a venue in Roanoke called the Coffee Pot, and I used to have a regular weekly gig there. And I pulled up outside the Coffee Pot. I had a guitar case in one hand and a bag with cables in or something in the other hand. And I walked up to the door to walk in, and a guy came out and held the door open for me. And then I said, oh, thank you very much. And I looked up, and it was Willie Nelson.
Oh, hey, Willie, what's happening?
And I thought, oh, okay.
I mean, he's had to carry gear before. I'm sure at some point.
I only clocked it as I looked at him as I walked in. But I mean, I wasn't like, oh, Willie Nelson, I need your picture, and can you sign my guitar? And it's like, he's a musician. He knows the deal. I got gear in my hand. I'd have done the same for him.
Exactly. He also looks like the nicest person in the world. But anyway,
sure.
Or seems like. All right. What's our next album?
Okay. So the next album from 1978, this is their first album. It's The Cars.
Me and Charlie were playing music trivia last night, and it was Drive. The song was Drive. Mm-hmm. And Charlie was like, the cars, what's it called? I'm like, Drive. It's a car.
Well, the drive is a later song of theirs.
Oh no, it's just that it just happened to come up last night.
Have you ever heard my instrumental take on that song?
No.
Well, back when at the beginning of Radio Freak Jam, when all of us were stuck at home and had a lot of time to kill, we used to do these Zoom calls, and in fact, you've been a part of this, where most of my friends are in the UK, and I used to join the call here in the United States. And I used to drive around, I might pick some food up, or I might get some petrol, and I'd have my phone in the car, and I'd take them for a drive. So just people were interested to see what it is like around where we live. And I made a cover version of Drive where I played the vocal line on electric guitar, and then I made a video that went with it of me driving around the town where we live.
That's smart. Yeah, Tim went to the car wash on one of the most recent Zooms we had, and I sang a resounding version of Car Wash while he was going through it.
Let me tell you, that's top Zoom content, driving through an automatic car wash.
Which I went to the next weekend. I did go, Tim.
I believe when Tim Berners-Lee invented the internet and Mr. Zoom invented Zoom and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure they thought, yes, how can we get a transatlantic car wash going?
They're putting in another car wash on the other side of Christiansburg now. I just saw it the other day.
I have seen that opposite the Dairy Queen. I'm sure for all our listeners around the world who have no idea where this is, but yes, this is big news. We're going to get a second fully automatic car wash in town. I
got nervous when I went in it for the first time because I had to pull you. You have to put your tire right in the little thing so it can pull you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm in. But then I was like, am I in? I think I'm in. And the guy's like, you're fine. And I'm like, I hope I am. And then I don't like it. I didn't like sitting in it while it pulls it for you.
Well, you have to put your car in neutral and then it pulls you through.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that part, Tim. I just didn't like it. I don't know why it bothered me that my car. Maybe I'm never destined to get a Tesla because.
Let me tell you, having a self-driving car has been my dream since 1982, but I think that's well-trodden territory.
Well, I was scrolling through a YouTube video the other day or something, or a Facebook video, and the girl was talking and she just recording, and I realized that she was recording while her car was driving her down the road, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like a thing, and it was her Tesla.
Yeah, I see the practical application of the self-driving car is not necessarily you getting in the car and pressing go and it taking you where you want to go. I see the practical application of that is like cruise control. So you get on the motorway interstate, you pull out, and then you press the self-drive, and then to some degree you can completely relax. That's where I see the practical application.
So I agree with that statement. But see, the thing about it is I don't know that I could ever relax because every time I would get near another car or anything would happen, I'd probably get super anxious. I don't know.
Yeah, you're trusting your life to software, but
to an extent, we are all trusting our life to some software.
That's true, but you're on the road and you're trusting yourself to strangers who may be intoxicated, who may be not in a good place to be driving. There's so many things, so many factors. Yet that huge, great big truck's going to drive past you. You don't know if that guy's tired. You don't know if that guy's high. You don't know if that guy is having a bad time with things and really shouldn't be driving. And here I am thinking
about, am I going to go in at 12 tomorrow in this ice, Tim? And thanks for reminding me of all those factors, too. Thank you for making me think about my drive to work tomorrow. Anyway.
There we are. Anyhow, it's the Cars and it's great music.
I just thought it was funny because Charlie was like, the Cars, what's the name of the song? I went, Drive, it's a car. Anyway, I thought I was hilarious.
Well, this album, as it's their first, it has Good Times Roll, Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed. Some people who don't know the Cars think this first album is their greatest hits because all the good stuff
it's on that album.
It's on that album. It is iconic. It's great. I got a Cars box set in a thrift shop which has all their albums, and there's great music across all of the releases they've had. But the one that you pick out every time is that one.
I think my favorite would probably be Just What I Needed.
Yeah, that's a good song.
It's probably my favorite Choir song.
There you go.
And they missed an opportunity when they did the Cars movie. That one that Disney did, they could have really put a lot in the soundtrack. Missed opportunity.
I think you should be working for Pixar or something.
See, I could have. Well, I will say they did. Oh, what is that one song that was in there that the country band did a version of, and it's about. Life is a Highway. Life is a Highway was in it. But they did the country Rascal Flatts version or whatever, which I would rather not. I'd rather hear the original, but they did put that in there. So they took an opportunity.
There we are. Fantastic. Well, I've never seen Cars, so there we go.
Well, it's a bunch of animated cars. You're not missing that much.
Is that your Rotten Tomatoes review? It's animated cars, you're not missing them.
I mean, it's an animated car. He goes through the trials and tribulations of becoming a race car. He's got the classic guy who's like his mentor, the crazy friend who's the truck. Yeah. There you go. There's the synopsis of the movie.
I think I'm just going to watch Smokey and the Bandit again. I think it's fine.
That's fair. I mean.
But there we go. Anyhow. Next album, self-titled album, no-name album, is from 1969, and it's the Allman Brothers Band.
Oh. I kind of always forget they exist. I don't know why.
Well, my dear friend Jules, who sadly is no longer with us, he was a absolutely massive Allman Brothers super fan. Like, he loved the Allman Brothers to the point where he would have all the bootlegs of all of their shows. The Allman Brothers, whilst they were performing, had a big bootleg trading community. So some bands like Eric Clapton, who we discussed, who sues German people who put bootleg CDs on eBay. A lot of these improvisational bands, like the Allman Brothers, they actively encourage trading of bootlegs. And the reason that they do it is they figure that everyone who's into this thing has everything they've ever released anyway and has bought it 3 times over. So by trading the bootlegs, it means that you're more excited about the band, you're thinking about the band, you're buying the T-shirt, you're coming to the next gig, you heard them on the tour.
And the
3
money
weeks ago.
anymore is not in the CD sales anyway. Like, that's not where the money is. The money's in concerts.
Yeah, but I mean, he was into this stuff 20 plus years ago when CD sales were more of a thing. But that they have that sort of trading thing, and I think Fish do it, and I think the Grateful Dead used to do it. It was a thing. You do the trading tapes with fans. It was a thing. Okay. But one thing I will say, having listened to a lot of this bootleg stuff through him, I've come to the conclusion. The Allman Brothers, I like their studio albums. I think some of the songs on there are absolutely amazing. But their live albums go on all flipping day. And it's fun if you're playing that music. And I've played that kind of Allman Brothers jam band improvisational music. It is fun to do. You know, you're bouncing off all the people in the band.
And if you're at the concert, it's fun because it's like all over the place and cool. And
yeah, but to actually listen to it back and hear a 17-minute version of Memory of Elizabeth Reed or Ramblin' Man or Jessica or something, it's just like, come on.
I mean, the irony of it being about rambling.
Yeah.
That's the joke I was making. Anyway, I do like the Allman Brothers. They're just not a band that comes to mind all that often for me.
No, I mean, I as I said, I like their studio work. And when I think of him, it makes me think of Jules because he was such a big fan. And he saw the band a number of times. There was one time he traveled to New York City, like saw them on a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and then came home again. I mean, he was fully into this Allman world. How
many members are there? Like 6? Oh, 7. It's pretty large.
Yeah, I mean, they don't exist anymore. We lost Greg Allman, obviously Dwayne Allman years and years and years ago. But, they had 2 drummers and a guitarist and another guitar player and a thing. And it's just a percussionist. And there was
So they had like a huge band, if I remember. It was like 6, 7 people.
Yeah, and it morphed through various phases. You had Dickie Betts in the band, you had Warren Haynes in the band, you had Derek Trucks in the band, you had Jack Pearson in the band, Dan Toller was in the band. They had in the 80s, they had like a synthesizer keyboard player in the band.
That's very 80s.
Yeah, but they went through various guises of band members. But I said the self-titled one from '69. I mean, this has some of their iconic work on it. It's Not My Cross to Bear, Whipping Post, Dreams, Black-Hearted Woman, Trouble No More. I mean, these are all songs that they were playing almost up to the end of their career.
I mean, yeah. Well, and it sounds like if you go to one of their concerts and then you go to another one, you're going to get a completely different experience every time because it is so improv and what they're feeling or what they want to do at that moment.
Sure, absolutely. I do have one Allman Brothers bootleg that I kept. To be honest, I used to have his entire bootleg archive, and I deleted a lot because when I came to that realization one sunny day, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna listen to the studio stuff, and it's like Control A and then delete. However, I kept one. They did a show with Zakk Wylde, and I think you know who Zakk Wylde is.
I do.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, he's Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player. He was on No More Tears. I don't think he was on the last Ozzy album, but he's been a part of the Ozzy world for a long time. And if you think of the track, Mama's, what's that?
Mama, I'm Coming Home.
That's the one. Got tongue-tied. And No More Tears, that is Zakk Wylde. He knows, and he had the long hair and the whole thing. So he shared a manager with the Allman Brothers, or they had the same touring manager, or they had some kind of business connection. And Dickie Betts, the guitar player, got thrown in jail for Dickie Betts reasons. So they had a show at 7 p.m. and at 11 a.m., where's Dickie? Oh, he's in jail. So they were running out of ideas, and they're probably, I don't know where this is, Idaho or something. It's irrelevant for the story, but they couldn't find anyone to cover it. But who's in town? Zakk Wylde.
That's convenient.
So he knew all the songs anyway. So he goes up to the sound check and he riffs through a few songs with them. And then they played the show. And I've got this bootleg.
That's kind of awesome.
And Zakk Wylde said, his comment on this is, he said, I had such a great time. I went brutally blanking ballistic. I don't think they're going to be asking me back.
Oh, I can see that happening. Lord. I only know him. Well, I've heard of him with Ozzy, and I've heard Ozzy talk about him, and I've seen him because he's got like the long hair and everything. Mm-hmm. But I never watched that Ozzy Osbourne show, but I saw pieces of it because I remember Ozzy got into like a four-wheeling accident, like on a four-wheeler or something. Mm-hmm. And I saw bits and pieces, and he talks about Zakk Wylde a few times, all the things that I did see. So that's the reason I knew who you were talking about. Not that I'm like up on all my guitar knowledge.
Yeah, Zakk Wylde is a incredibly entertaining character. And if you don't follow Zakk Wylde on Instagram, I highly recommend you do, because certainly at the beginning of the pandemic lockdown, when Zakk had all his touring cancelled, he would just post these videos. So like he's in like Walmart buying ice cream. And then, like, you'll see a video of him, and it will turn to an ice cream box. And then he puts, like, the ice cream up to the camera, and he goes, and it's just, what?
Well, he's kind of an eccentric dude. Like, he always had the guitars with, like, the circles on them. I think I saw him once singing into a mic or doing backup vocals into a mic that had, like, skull going down it.
Oh, yeah.
He's an eccentric dude, so... I mean, maybe he was just losing it like the rest of us during the pandemic, Tim, and he wanted that ice cream.
Maybe. And then he does another thing where he's got a large kitchen counter in his house, and then he sets up ramps, and he has the wind-up Evel Knievel, and then he'll set up, like, weird things for Evel Knievel to crash into. It's just... As I said, you have to see it, but his videos are thoroughly entertaining.
That's fair. Okay, I'll have to follow him on the Instagrams. I would say if you follow any musicians on the Instagrams, be careful of some of the 80s hair band ones that you follow. I follow a few that I had to remove because they weren't PG. And I'd be like, going through Instagram, I'd be like, oh, what did Slade post? Okay, we're done. Be like, Slash is a good one. His Instagram's something else if you've never been to it, Tim.
Yeah, I see that. I'm signed up to that.
Tim's like, it's fine. It just cracks me up because I'll be like, everything will be like a cute puppy, what? Oh, okay. And then I just keep scrolling.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't got his account suspended. I mean, typically they're like works of art or cartoons he posts, but they're not what you would call safe for work.
No, they're not. And so like, you're just like, I'm just innocently like, and it's always like you said, there's some artistic choice that's almost like some disturbing image that turns into something else. Yeah. Of course, I mean, was it Slash who you said his mom was like a Was it Slash who had like a famous mom?
Yeah, she was like, I think she was a costume designer or something like that. And anyway, as we said, she went out with David Bowie for a while.
That's what it was. Okay. I know we talked about him on one of the episodes. All right. So we probably have time for like one or two more albums. What you got, Tim?
Okay, so I couldn't do this without speaking about one of my favorite artists, who is Sheryl Crow.
She was on The Masked Singer and she won, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's already out. Sorry if you haven't watched it, guys. If that's a spoiler alert for you, I should have said that first. But yeah, she won The Masked Singer this last time, and she could change her voice so much. It was crazy.
I love Sheryl Crow. I have a music regret that I didn't see her in Roanoke when she opened up the Elmwood Park Amphitheatre. Now, I will say my claim to fame. So in Roanoke, which is the nearest biggest town to where we are, they have an amphitheatre in Elmwood Park, and it's a really nice stage. I've played on that stage a number of times, and I've seen artists on that stage too. But it was the big deal that they built the stage, and the first, or something, it's the second weekend that it was open to the public, the big opening show was Sheryl Crow, and she was officially opening the Elmwood Park Amphitheatre. The week before that was I forget what it was. It was like a Strawberry Festival or Battle of the Bands or something.
They do a Strawberry Festival.
Yeah, I think it was the Strawberry Festival. And I played it the week before Sheryl Crow. So effectively, Sheryl didn't open it. It was me.
Well, we'll give her a call and see what she has to say. I'm pretty sure it was her. Oh, maybe it was. Okay, maybe I lied to you. It might have been Jewel who was the Masked Singer. Just ignore me now. I was thinking Sheryl Crow, but I think it's Jewel.
I've never seen it, but there we go.
Doesn't matter. I might have lied to you guys. But no, I like it. But I was going to say is I've heard that her concerts are really good too, though. Like she's got the it factor when you're watching her live she's very good on stage.
Oh, she is absolutely amazing. And like all of her albums have such strong songs on them. And I mean, and I said this is from 1996, and it's got Maybe Angels, A Change Would Do You Good. That's such a good song.
Which is probably my favorite song by Sheryl Crow.
Yeah, Sweet Rosalind or Rosalind. And then If It Makes You Happy. I mean, that's such a great song.
I will say there's one song of hers that I can't hear it anymore, Tim.
What's that?
The first cover is The Deepest. I can't do it.
Well, no, I mean, that's a cover, but...
Yeah, but her version's the one they always play on like the radio. Her version, I just heard it so much. I don't know what it is. That's the one I can't do anymore. But I think A Changes Will Do You Good is probably my favorite Sheryl Crow song.
Yeah, and then this also has Hard to Make a Stand and Every Day is a Winding Road on it. I mean, like this album is like almost a veritable greatest hits for Sheryl Crow.
I was gonna say that's like almost every song she's like ever done.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have I like a lot of her stuff, as I said, but it's not like it doesn't have the songs from Tuesday Night Music Club on there, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, to be fair, she's been a long-standing artist. Like, I feel like she's put out hits for a long time. You know what I mean, Tim? Like for multiple years. Like it wasn't like she's like it says like Alanis Morissette. I love Alanis Morissette, but she had a very short time where she put out a lot of hits, right, and a lot of songs, and then she kind of faded away. I feel like Sheryl Crow consistently kind of years. Like she could put out a song tomorrow, and I feel like it would probably be popular.
Yeah, the problem with Alanis is Alanis Morissette, you want your Alanis to be angry, you want her to be pissed off at men.
And now she's happy.
Yeah, and when she's happy, she doesn't make good music.
Jagged Little Pill, though, man.
Jagged Little Pill, every man in the world had crossed her, and she was ready to make this album, and it is amazing.
It's a great album.
Written and recorded in a week.
Yeah. Her voice is so unique too, though. Like I like the tone of her voice. But anyway, what I was getting at though is I love Alanis Morissette, but I feel like Sheryl Crow has a lot more long-standing hits, like multiple years, like different songs came out. Sure, and I think Sheryl Crow will have a career as long as she wants to have one. Yeah, and she's like just musically talented, like songwriting, the playing, all that kind of stuff. She plays keys, she plays bass, she plays guitar. I mean, Sheryl is the whole package, and I really want to see her. Next time she comes anywhere near here, I have to see Sheryl Crow. Sheryl Crow, if you're within a 5-hour radius of Christiansburg, Virginia, please let Tim know. Well, I mean, I like Sheryl Crow, but I don't know if I'm going to drive to Nashville or something to see Sheryl Crow. I might go to Greensboro, North Carolina, which is like 2 and a bit hours. I was saying, make it more like 3. Anywhere's within 3 hours, Tim will go. He might stay the night at a hotel.
I've done that before. When we saw Van Halen at the Greensboro Coliseum, we stayed in a cheap hotel. We had a great time.
I've done that a few times. When I saw the Backstreet Boys, because, we went down to Charlotte. When I saw The Offspring, when I saw The Used, when I saw Good Charlotte, they were in Lynchburg. All of those. I went afterwards. I just got a cheap hotel and then drove back the next morning.
Yeah, it's much easier to deal with that.
No, we did one time. Okay, so when we went to Lynchburg, I was seeing Good Charlotte, and it was this cool venue that I cannot believe I haven't got to go to again, Tim. It was like this, it was like a little club, I guess, like kind of like a little nightclub, but not had like a good stage area and that kind of thing. And they had bars and they served food, and then they had like a top part that was the VIP lounge, and I paid extra for the little VIP lounge, so we got to be up on top and you could see everything much clearer, and you weren't fighting all the people who were down trying to get towards the stage and stuff, and we got like free food and free drinks or whatever. But anyway, it was, and I never got to go there again, and I've tried to find this place. I want to go back if they ever have a concert, because it's the best venue I've ever been to as far as like just the comfortability, and the sound was great too. But when we stayed there, though, it was, so there's two major colleges in Lynchburg. There's Lynchburg College, and then there's Liberty, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently, they both had homecoming on the same weekend. That was the same weekend as the Good Charlotte concert that we went to. I didn't know. I scoured forever trying to find a hotel. Found one. I spent $128 for one night. So you think that's kind of, $90, that's not the worst, but it's not cheap for a hotel. Pay an extra $10 for it to be non-smoking, by the way. So we get there, and it was your definition of a crack hotel. The Uber driver waited for us to get into our rooms because he said that that's what it was.
Oh,
he waited out front for us. So, to be fair, we literally just slept and left. You know what I mean, Tim? Like, we didn't sing around. Yeah. But when I was in the bathroom, whoever painted the bathroom, like, didn't even wipe the walls down. So there was like hair painted in the paint in the bathroom.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, lo and behold, I spent an extra $10. The first thing that's on there when we walk in, an ashtray for a non-smoking room.
I don't even know if they have smoking hotels anymore. I don't even know if that's a thing.
I feel like they have. I feel like they do. I feel like you pay for, maybe not anymore. This was only 2 years back. Oh. 2 or 3 years ago. Pre-pandemic, but not by a whole lot.
Maybe that's a North Carolina thing, because I don't think in Virginia you have smoking hotels.
Well, this is Lynchburg, Virginia. So.
Sorry. I thought.
Well, we said Charlotte, but yeah, no, this one was in Lynchburg. I don't know. Well, I will have to look it up, and we will effectively let everyone know what the rules are on smoking. Did you also know that you're not supposed to smoke on airplanes anymore, but they used to? In the bathroom, they have like those little ashtrays. Have you ever noticed that? Apparently. Yeah. It's because occasionally you'll get somebody who's so addicted they choose to smoke anyway, so they make them go in the bathroom.
Well, the other thing is most commercial aircraft that are flying are 20, 30 plus years old, so they still have all the same fixtures. And the other thing is, I think smoking is still allowed on Japanese airliners. I think Japanese domestic routes, and I think some Japanese routes that come from some places to Japan still allow smoking. And often aeroplanes are leased to the airlines. They don't buy them. So they'll repaint them and send them on. So maybe Japan Airways may borrow a British Airways jet for 6 months.
I was just reading a thing. Yeah, you're right. They're like, they kept them in the bathroom, though, because they said occasionally somebody will be so like jonesing for a cigarette, they'll just go in the bathroom and smoke. And rather than them, throw it on the ground, they kept the cigarette thing. I can't imagine riding in a plane with a bunch of people smoking around me. That sounds terrible.
Well, I remember when I was at school, we used to get on the bus, and this is not like a US school bus. It would be like what you'd think of a London double-decker bus. And it used to be, if you went up onto the top deck of the bus, you could smoke. And like school kids who smoked, whose parents didn't know, they would go up to the top deck of the bus and get one in before they got home.
Makes sense. Well, my mom's yearbooks, they were smoking. They let them go out of class and smoke because it was legal for 16 plus at that time or something.
Yeah. I've smoked cigarettes, but it's disgusting. And I just wish it would go away. See,
Charlie was a smoker. Knock on wood. He has stopped and does not smoke anymore. And he says what's weird is after he stopped smoking, he can smell smoke so much more like intensely on things. Like he can actually sense it. Yeah.
I remember when I first moved here, they'd just done away with smoking in venues in England. All the pubs, clubs, all did away with smoking for about a year or so before I left. And then I came back here and I started playing these moose lodges that are full on smoking. And I just got the smoke smell out of all my equipment. And then I got here and it's like, oh, come on.
Darn it. Darn you. All right, Tim, give us one last album.
Okay, so I'm gonna close out with the 1988 album, Tracy Chapman.
Tracy Chapman was on our thing last night. We were playing trivia again. And Tracy Chapman is one of my husband's favorite musicians.
Tracy Chapman is amazing. I mean, she has such a great voice, but equally, she's such a great songwriter.
I feel like she's completely slept on in the sense that like she doesn't get enough credit.
No, I mean, most people know her for Fast Car, which is the track that's on this album. But I mean, I have a number of albums of Tracy Chapman's long after this came out in '88. And I mean, her songwriting, the lyrics she writes, the messages that she has, I mean, she is so good. And you're right. People think of Tracy Chapman as being the Fast Car person.
Yeah, I feel like most people would define her as a one-hit wonder, but Charlie really got into her, I don't know, 4 or 5 years back, and I had to listen to her albums on repeat, and they're so good. And she's one of those people that I find is like the complete package. Like you're talking about Sheryl Crow, like she could play, she can sing, she writes her own music, like that kind of whole artistry. It's rare when you find them gems.
Exactly. But anyhow, there we go. That was the No Name album on the No Name Musicast thing.
That thing, what Tim said. All right, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.